Okay, I would like to call this meeting of the Board of Directors of Belmont Friendly Community Schools to order. And could we have the roll call, please?
Kathy Burke,
Here.
Sharon Bartman,
Here.
Gary Bergman,
Here.
Rick McDaniel,
Here.
Teresa Mossman, Mark Sleeping,
Here.
Jane Turner.
Here.
Bill mark that Jane is attending telephonically.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. Welcome visitors. And is there anyone that would like to speak to the board this evening? Pastor Dave?
Yes.
Come on up.
At this time?
Sure.
Come on down.
Hi, Reverend Dave DeKuyper, Emmanuel Reformed Church. We were talking in the ministerial, and we want to express our concern about student activities on Sunday morning and the use of the school facility for that. Churches, I think, are a key backbone to part of the backbone to the community in general. We work with a lot of families. We support that. We help to bring character and strength to the students who work here. Churches really do support the community, and they support the school as well. And we make a lot of compromises during the school week to accommodate all the activities at school as well as the students' activities. And this sense of the encroachment on Sunday mornings is just deeply concerning to us. And I'm mainly speaking for myself, but I think it was the sentiments of our ministerial group as we had met. And I'd just like the school board to really carefully consider that, and possibly even the consideration of a policy to guard against that a little bit. So.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Ms. Burke, may I pose a question to you?
Absolutely.
First off, you are aware that this is not a school activity?
Yes, I am aware of
Okay,
that.
good.
Yeah.
We're going to take a look at that policy tonight, but the concern I have is that if we shut off and say we will not allow people to use our gymnasium before noon on a Sunday, that means no one can use our school facilities before noon on a Sunday. And the community I came from, they would do, a number of churches would go together and throw a big Easter Sunday service in the school auditorium where they try to bring in 1,000 people all worshiping and praying at the same time. If the board was to pass that policy, it would preclude the community, any community, including our churches, from using it during that same time period. From your perspective, is that a worthy trade-off?
I don't know if I would accept the premise that that's a worthy trade-off. I think there needs to be an accommodation between the churches and the school board, particularly on the Sunday mornings. I think one of the things that's disconcerting is that nobody was aware of this till it was brought to our attention in a roundabout way, and suddenly it's there, so we can't even plan around it or speak to that or address it with our parents and that too. So then there's, in our mind, we end up with a lot of compromises between us and our families and our students that are participating in that as well. I would like to encourage the board to just really carefully look at that and try to address that in an effective way.
Well, courts have ruled the board can only handle it in one way. Either they let everybody use it on Sunday morning, or absolutely no one use it on Sunday morning.
Right, so then my question back would be, if you're worried about us being closed out of the school, is this just opening the door for more and more activity, more and more during the week, and we find ourselves on Sunday morning making more and more compromises? I think it can go both ways. If you say no, then I think as churches, that opens the door for a lot more activities, and so then it's interfering in an effective way too. If you say yes, you can say you're closing the churches out to the schools on Sunday mornings as well. So it goes both ways.
And any preference from your perspective?
I guess I'd like to talk about that further and explore that before I make a recommendation one way or the other.
Okay.
And I can lean in here a little bit and interject a little bit. I inherited a system last year when I came in. They had the tournament last year, and they had it for the 3 or 4 previous years on the Sunday. So I permitted it again this year because it's been past practice. So I thought we were not having any issues with that at that time. It's been on the agenda or our school calendar since April when we all met as a group. So I thought that provided enough notification.
I'm not sure anybody, any of the ministers were aware
And
of
it
it.
wasn't on the calendar that comes out in the paper, because I looked.
Well, no, we wouldn't have put it on that district
Right.
calendar.
So-
It's, because it's not really one of our activities. We
Right.
just put it there, to be honest with you, to make sure that we don't overlap something else on our calendar that's,
Right.
we're doing non-school events on that calendar. Basically allows our janitors to understand what's going on, our
Right.
coaches to understand
Right. I
who's in those
understand that.
facilities and when, and that's why we do it. Try
I
to
would say
clean
no
up some
one knew
stuff.
about it unless you had a student that was involved in it in some way.
Or you looked at our website.
Right.
Certainly wasn't an intent, though, to keep it out of your knowledge.
Well, I've
I
lived
don't-
in this
I don't-
community 30 years, and we've never had a church service on a Sunday morning in the school that I can remember.
I've been here longer.
So I don't see that that's
Well,
gonna
this
be,
one.
I don't think
And
that's
never
gonna be
in
a big
45
problem.
years have there been an event on Sunday morning that involved the churches in our school.
Yeah,
And I've been here.
And you've been longer, Shannon.
Yeah.
Yes, you have.
yeah.
Well, I
Let's not
appreciate
get
you
into
listening. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to explore that further.
Okay, anyone else that would like to address the board? Ready? Then, you've already changed the agenda, right? Didn't you?
No, I would like to suggest one amendment to the agenda. We had a late change in the agenda, and that was adding, and it's not on your electronic copy, but it's on your paper copy. Item 6E is County Assessor Sherry Plaguey talking about our Wright County tax process. She's going to have a presentation a little bit later tonight, sorry. I'm just clarifying the agenda. And so that's been added to the agenda since, because that was a very late breaking thing, just got added on at the end of the day yesterday. But due to the length of the agenda, I'd like to suggest, if no one has any objections, 6B, removing talk about effective schools research to a later meeting.
All right.
I would move that we approve the agenda with both amendments,
Okay,
the addition and the deletion.
Gary? Mark? All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, so we now have 6A, C, D, E, and F. All right, the consent agenda includes the minutes, the financial statements, the bills, the application for the SBRC, and the personnel resignations and recommendations. Is there any one of those that you would like to take out of the consent agenda, or is everyone good with approving them as a whole?
I'd like to add some names to the personnel recommendations, please.
Okay,
Kyle Wilkinson has resigned as head varsity baseball. Mark Schmidt has volunteered to be a volunteer assistant wrestling coach. And and I'm recommending Brad Blumke for high school girls varsity track coach for this spring.
okay, so just to make sure I've got that. So the first one is a resignation and the second two are hires.
Correct.
Okay, Mark Schmidt was a volunteer
Volunteer.
wrestling, and Brad is girls softball?
Girls, yes.
Track.
Girls
Track.
softball.
Track.
Brad.
Softball.
Track.
Brad,
I
what
didn't know
are you?
he even knew how to play
Track.
softball.
Track.
Oh, we're adding girls track.
I see
High school.
what I thought. Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of the resignation of Kyle Wilkinson, head baseball, and the addition of Mark Schmidt, volunteer wrestling, and Brad Blemke, high school girls track?
So moved.
Sharon?
I'll second
Okay. Any,
Yes,
Jane?
I have one thing. Will we vote on those personnel hires individually?
no, it's part of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Or Or would you like to take them out of the consent agenda?
No, I was just going to abstain from one. So
Oh, okay.
I didn't know how you wanted me to handle that.
I don't think there's an issue with the consent agenda.
Okay. Dr. Frazier doesn't think there'll be an issue, so you don't need to abstain.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Reports, Trish?
I'm gonna be,
Would you like
Showing
us to
them.
move?
no, if you just want to turn around just a little bit. I feel like actually.
No, we don't have to turn around much.
This is going to be doing a little bit of modeling here.
Should we
We
dim
went
the lights here? Would
ahead
that be better?
Pardon me?
Should I dim the lights? Would that be better?
Yeah, I can go ahead and do that, but I needed just to connect there for a moment. It's just taking me a minute. We did some practice here with the Apple TV, which is connecting wirelessly. And it's been taking, this is like a beta run on it. So, make sure the projector's on. I like to come. All right.
No signal input yet.
I know it. Okay, Plan B, Plan B. We will do Plan B here. Oh, wait,
Wait a second.
just took it a minute. Yay.
It's just slow. I think you got that bad battery in there.
Well, we have actually 2 adapters up there because we had to run additional wires to accommodate an actual hardwired thing. So I think there's some interference in there on it, and that's what's going on. Before we did that, we tested it, it actually worked really well. Mr. Frazier had asked me to address you guys because we hadn't talked a lot about technology and where we're at. Since we're past the middle of the year, just to report a little bit of what's going on and how things are going. And in my opinion, for the most part, compared to where we were, we're doing really, really well. The infrastructure updates that we put in over the summer and a few that we updated mid-school year, the first semester, and then over Christmas, has adjusted some of the issues that we were experiencing with connections. And we knew we were going to have some things that we were going to need to adapt and adjust to on that. So we were able to quite quickly adjust and adapt to what we needed to do. We did have a little bit of a surprise, even though we knew that one of our servers was going to need to be replaced this summer. We were kind of hoping we could just like baby it and talk to it nice, and it decided that it wasn't going to continue to work. So we ended up having to replace that, and we did it over the holiday break. We also have had to move around a few of the wireless access points to adjust and adapt to some additions, especially at the elementary when we added the iPads and stuff. So we've gone ahead and we can actually run reports and see the connection signals and the strengths, and then, you know, sometimes even if you just turn it a little bit, it's going to adjust to what the needs are. So we're watching that really closely. It's really interesting, the management software that we have for the Apples and the iPads. You can see the activity of the computers that the kids are using, even when they're at home. And you can tell where they're going and what they're doing. So it's very overwhelmingly a good feeling to see that they are utilizing the tool as how we were hoping. And as we go into the next slide, I'll explain to you how we also are figuring that out. And the teachers have actually adapted very well to the Macs. So now we're going to challenge them some more. And actually, we have a few teachers that are going to be beta testing the Apple TVs in their classrooms with their Promethean boards. And we had to purchase certain types of adapters to adjust, because we actually have 4 generations of projectors in there. So we had to kind of figure out exactly what we would need for them to be able to continue to function. So we'll be starting that this week and next week. We installed 3 up here, and we'll install 3 down at the elementary, and then they'll report back and see how, you know, things, obstacles that they had, so we can adapt to what we need. So there's a better adjustment on that.
Is this something that we would potentially expand to all teachers having?
We have the devices for all teachers. The problem that we're having is, at this point, with their projectors in their rooms, we have some that still have the old orange ones, and those are 9 years old, and they're still working. And you know what we do here, we use things up until they die. But that means that we have to adapt some of our, you can see some of them up on top of that projector. There's some adapters that we have to do for them to function with the new technology. So, and those are kind of, they're not expensive for the adapters, but it'll allow them to continue on. It will be something that we're going to have to address in the future to accommodate the needs of how they are using the devices in their classroom. Here at the junior, senior high, every kid has a screen. So we have to look at things a little differently on how we're teaching the technology. So we'll be looking at that also. We had some issues with our video camera system. We've had to baby it with a DVR. It wasn't keeping up with all the video that it was taking. We had the company that we had servicing it come in, and it was getting to the point to where he was coming in once or twice a month to fix it. So we went ahead, at the urging of Dr. Frazier, to go ahead and call different companies to have them come in and do an audit on the systems to see if they could possibly do something that could resolve the issues, because we couldn't continue on with how we had been continuing on. So we found a company that came in and gave us an audit, and we are proceeding with the fix that we need and actually updating the system. So we can, it'll be IP based, so we can access it as long as we have permissions of who needs to via a computer, not a special terminal. It'll also be web-based and app-based if we need to. For example, if law enforcement has to come in and look from their vehicles on their computers, they can. So if we have issues going on in the evening, they want to check and make sure, they can do that from their cars, from wherever. So that's where we're moving forward in regard to that. The same company looked at our door system, and we're going to be adapting and adjusting and upgrading that as well. So they're good guys. They're a good company. They actually really cut us a very good deal as far as helping us out. We don't have to replace any of the cameras. They've adapted everything that we needed, so the expense isn't as high as it could have been. So that's where we're at with there. If you guys remember last year when we were talking about moving one-to-one, the ones that were here, the new ones weren't. Part of the foundation that we utilized to determine how we should proceed, or if we would do that, was what we call the Clarity Survey. This is a survey that a lot of schools in the state of Iowa take every year, and it gives you the temperature of the perspective, how things are used technology-wise at home and here for students and staff. The responses that we got last year lent us to believe, if you remember, Sharon, because you were on the technology committee, that we needed to go in the direction of one-to-one. And part of what you guys wanted us to do was to make sure that we gathered data subsequent to actually committing to that, to see if what we did was worth doing. And it's very interesting because it did, actually. And I can give you, I gotta escape this because this is something really weird here. Just a real quick, because I don't have a lot of time allotment here, but one of the things that the Clarity Survey does, and this is just the basic top level all of this can be drilled down to actually telling you if students have issues connecting teachers, home use, their beliefs, their expectations of how technology should be, to the point to where if we need to work on digital citizenship, if we need to work on PD for teachers, you know, if there's some things that are lacking. And this is kind of just giving you an overall snapshot. They use the K-score legend. Last year we were between the beginning and emerging on a lot of stuff, and then we were also in the emerging. If you notice, overall, in the state of Iowa, it's that top one for the benchmarks. It says all technology and learning. That's us. Right below that is the state of Iowa points, and pretty much every single school district in the state takes this. If you look, we are actually above everyone except for the access. And I attribute that to the lower elementary because we've got to start working on the technology access down there too. But we have grown leaps and bounds. If you look down here for the districts from this year to last year, we have actually grown on that. And we can drill down, I mean, the reports that you can get here, I could talk to you for an hour about, because it's actually pretty exciting, but I'm not going to do that on that. What I am going to do, though, is I am going to show you a teacher's perspective on what we've done.
It's very exciting for me to see how my fifth graders have grown and embraced the one-to-one education this year. Our students are excited and engaged with the work that they're doing every day. It's not just open the textbook or get out a worksheet. The kids have been able to Skype with a scientist. We spoke with a paleontologist in New Mexico last week to learn about fossils instead of just reading a book about fossils. Our kids have been able to talk to a Paralympic athlete on a program called Blue Jeans, where they were able to ask questions online and he was able to answer them. We have changed our science program. Instead of just being able to do coding for a week once a year, the kids are able to work at their own pace and do however much coding that they feel comfortable. We have one student who has actually completed the entire coding program and has gone on to learn other types of coding on his own. Tell us what coding is. Coding is where you teach a computer to do a task. So the kids are given a task that they need to program a computer game to move forward or jump over something or turn to the left. They have a bee that collects nectar. They computer code the program from start to finish to complete these different tasks. And that fits with our STEM curriculum. STEM is taking science and technology and engineering and math and putting it all together. Without the one-to-one computer, we lose the technology piece of that and aren't able to work on those important life skills with our kids. Tell us a little bit about a few students who have taken the coding program beyond your expectations. My expectations were that they completed one task a day, and there are 150 tasks. And one student was so excited about it that he went home that night and pretty much completed everything that I had assigned. And so now he has to move on and do junior high, high school tasks if he wants to complete the program, so he's gone on to that. Several parents have emailed me pictures of their kids at night working on coding on their own, nothing that I assigned, just things that they wanted to do. Same thing with our Moby Max program. They can log on to that anywhere, anytime, and advance themselves however far they want to. It's not just at school, during school time. If they have access to devices at home, because of all these programs that we've put into place, they can keep going. They can push themselves past whatever the fifth grade teacher says is this level. Kids that are gone, kids that are absent. I have a kid with chickenpox this week, and I have just sent everything that we're doing home on Google Classroom. He doesn't fall behind. I've put everything onto the Google Classroom, so when he comes back next week, he'll have everything done. He won't be behind. He can communicate with me various times during the week at night when I'm at home or on the weekend, I get messages from kids on Google Classroom asking a question about an assignment that I've given, and I can just answer them immediately. They don't have to wait until Monday when they come back. I can just answer them, and they can do the work over the weekend and not be behind when they come back.
How have you noticed the technology integration and students advancing in doing things more independently, how it has affected other courses, other instruction?
When they're able to push themselves with every task that they do, that carries over to, I'm going to try to read a harder book because I'm used to pushing myself. Instead of always taking the easy way out, the computers allow them to move on at the speed that they want to, and so then they want to do that with the other things that they're working on too.
Awesome. So awesome. Thank you so much, Kendra.
Yes.
And then, hearing from a student.
Tell us what coding is, Andrew.
So it's basically programming or like telling something what to do, and it's mainly used in electronics. Like if you went to a factory and there's a robotic arm, someone coded it to do what it does. So coding is used a lot, and I'm pretty good at it. So.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Okay, so this is number 7 on what I'm doing, and it's basically when I run it as Kazumas, and then when I get a Kazuma, I don't know, it plays a Kazuma sound, and then it adds 50 points. So what I like to do is, and then
So what task are you trying to complete? What's the job you're trying to get your computer to do?
I'm trying to make 8 Kazuma. Okay. So I gotta look for Kazuma, and then I gotta run. So basically every time I get that.
So you created that game?
But I didn't.
So what do you do if, when you try to create something, it doesn't work the first time?
Well, you have to redesign it. So I just added so it was spawning more. And now I spawned it.
What do you think about coding? Do you think it's fun, hard? Tell us what you think about it.
I think it's fun. Sometimes it gets challenging, but it's mainly fun.
There you go, guys. So in February, we're going to be taking another clarity survey, and that will have something to do with security, digital citizenship, and a variety of other things to see how safe we are on the internet as parents and kids. So that's our next step, because according to this clarity survey that we did, the data that came back is that's something that we need to work on. So now we're drilling it down a little further and making sure that we're addressing those things.
Any questions? I guess in answer to the question, are you smarter than a 5th grader? I would say no. Okay, Dr. Frazier.
Okay, before I talk about my written report, I'd like to mention I have some concerns I'd like the board to be aware of regarding some of the power tools our custodial and maintenance crews have. For example, we've had a lot of weather lately with snow and ice and buildup, and basically we have one small lawn tractor with a snowblower on it for the entire campus. And if, you know, these snow blowers, they really don't get down to the pavement, and they leave a skip of snow that then we get several hundred kids tramping over, and then it pounds the snow down and creates a sheet of ice. And I think we've got a liability issue with this. As you maybe noticed as you were coming in tonight, there's just a lot of snow and ice out there in the parking lot and on the sidewalks. And I'd like to take a look at getting, improving some of our tools, starting with some kind of a rotary broom that can get right down to the pavement and make things safer and also reduce our district liability. So, something I'm working on. How much would something like that cost? I think we could get a used one. We've looked into it, and we could get a used one for a couple $1,000s. but I think long-term we need to look at maybe some bigger, better power tools. And including some things indoors like riding machines to wax and clean the floors and those kinds of things. We've kind of trimmed down our maintenance crew to very bare-bones staff, and we needed to give them the tools to do a good job.
It's within your discretionary amount though, right?
That is, yes, that one, yes, the brush.
Well, especially outside, I mean, that's a no-brainer, because these kids haven't been driving that long. And aside from the liability thing, if they were to slide and pin a kid between cars, I mean, that's horrible. So
Well, not even that, but events, the last couple of basketball games we've had and stuff. I mean, the sidewalks, honestly, are not good, but that's because they can't get all this, I mean, you can't be out there with little ice scrapers trying to scrape every little tiny.
I laid salt down the last 2 times.
I know you have, and
Yeah.
you're doing the best you can with the equipment you have, but I do see it, you know, as a liability too, and in a rotary group, you're talking one that attaches to the tractor? Or?
Right. Although it's not going to be a real powerful one, but it's a quick stopgap. There's one I'm aware of that we can get quickly and get installed quickly. This has just been a lousy couple of weeks because it's never been warm enough to freeze and put a crust on the snow, and the wind whips up and blows all that light snow back across the areas we've just plowed.
They do work well. Rotary rooms do work well.
Yes, they do. Bad again Sunday night. Okay, moving on to
So
my...
do the people, I have one question. The people that do our snow removal just do our parking lot, is that correct?
Correct, just the parking where the vehicles go.
Okay, thank you.
Getting to my written report, I think I reported to the board erroneously that Iowa Wood Products donated $400. It was more like $7,600 worth of hardwood. Just a slight difference.
Yeah.
And would like to report, the board asked me to report back at this meeting on how we're progressing with pay for officials, and Ms. Greenfield reports that they have corrected that problem, basically a communications error, and they're now processing pay for officials within 24 to 48 hours. And the other thing I'll mention on page 2 of my written report, and that is we were down about 30 students at the beginning of the school year, and we're back up another 11 students since that time, making back more than a third of the loss. Of course without funding, but we're on our way back up. And that's my report.
Should we, have we sent a thank you to Industrial, the Iowa Woods?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I will. I'd like to get a picture.
That's a great idea, with kids using the letters.
Yeah, they sent that out to them and stuff. We're just actually getting it put away right now.
I bet. Okay, thank you. Dan, anyone have any questions? All right, moving on, principals' reports.
Okay.
Thank you for beauty.
I'll hit the new students actually.
Wow.
Thanks.
I was going to suggest rock, paper, scissors, but yeah.
It's okay. It's
Age
okay.
before beauty works
It
too.
works.
I am the elder student, or elder administrator and staff now. Going along with the new students, we actually received 3 more. We had one come in, a high school student today, and enrolled. She is transferring from Algona. And then we have 2 students that will be coming in the fall from Alexander area. They're currently a 7th and 8th grader. One we're looking into seeing whether or not he'd be eligible to compete varsity level in baseball. And that might determine if he comes in a little bit earlier or not. So we have 3 more in addition to what Mr. Frazier said, so which was really nice for us. Earlier in the week, on Tuesday, we had our academic awards, and I thought they went really well. We had raised our standards a little bit, and we still had quite a few students step up to that and get their academic letters. We are having the winter sports this week. If you've gone through the school and stuff, it's the seniors have gone all out because they're not going to get beat by the freshmen in the decoration. We also modified our pizza eating contest to pizza roll eating contest, and that went really well. We had no choking incidents. Thinking of liability there, of course. We will have the crowning tomorrow night in the middle of the boys' game, halftime of boys' game. So I have a little extended half. We kind of had a neat event last week with the acknowledgement of the new state qualifiers and state place winners board for the wrestling. and had 68 of our former competitors come back and receive their plaques, or a member of their family come back and receive their plaques. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of acknowledgement on that. A lot of thanks to Joni Warden and our staff here, Corey and Mike helped a little bit with that, and our couple students. We had Carter Ketchum, Kyle Watney, and Victoria Mayo really help on putting the names on those boards and stuff, and so it was really neat to see that come to fruition finally. I know Corey was sweating it out a little bit. We got it done the morning of the event, so we hung right in there. Leading with that, we have some big events coming up. On Saturday we have the district speech event that'll be at Waldorf. They start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's basically bang, 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 and we're done by about 11:15 in the morning. So I think it's going to be a great event for us. We were taking a lot of kids. We have 29 kids performing this year, which is a nice number for us for a small district. That's a high percentage of kids for us. I got to sneak down today. They have a parent night, dress rehearsal night, and I got to see that first one-act play. Sensational. It is really cool. Hopefully they do as well on Saturdays they did tonight. It'd be awesome. We also have senior wrestling on Monday night. If that event holds true, we get to come to school. That'll be in between the first and second dual meets. We'll acknowledge the seniors, and we have some wrestlers and some cheerleaders and a manager. That'll be acknowledged. Then the following Saturday they'll have sectional wrestling. Senior basketball night will be February 6th, and it's a crossover game for us. And we have a chance to win both those games, so that'll be a great opportunity for us. You talked about the donation of the wood, which is wonderful. Right now we've had 64 students enroll in college level classes for this semester, with 135 classes being taken. Again, those are both new records for us. So we're continuing to push the rigor in our classrooms. We've had carpeting come into our classrooms, and it's made a significant difference, and I want to thank Dr. Frazier for getting that one room done, because it makes a huge difference in that room with the asbestos out and the floor carpeted over and stuff. Very, very good classroom environment. I did have a neat thing happen today. I had two students, 8th graders, come in, and they talked to me about competency-based education or standards-based education. Never happened to me before in my principal's chair before. And basically what they were asking for is that something like a college level class where they'd have the entire class made up, be online, they'd have the lessons already, teachers already have the lessons done, and then students could take it at their own time, own pace. And that they could go really fast, or they could, you know, if they struggle in class or whatever, take a little longer, but they'd have all their resources available at their own hands and stuff. So I thought that was really neat that we have kids talking about ways that they can make their education personalized. And that's where we're kind of coming to. So I thought that was a neat thing, and I thought you guys really enjoyed that a little bit. And then we also have the Bronco Way, and I don't know if you've heard about the Bronco Way, but and its implementation, but we have implemented that, and as Scott can tell you, our number of missing assignments has reduced immensely, and our tardies have reduced quite a bit. Basically, we've set up the system for them, and we said if you can't, you know, if you're struggling getting your assignments in, if you have 2 missed assignments in a class or 3 altogether, you'll get either Tuesday morning before school or after school, one of those 2, and then one also on Thursday before school or after school. The teachers man that, and you're required to attend if you're having missing assignments, so we can get those things made up and stuff. And last semester we had, at the end of the semester we had 63 pages of missing assignments. And now we're down into the teens, so that's a nice change there. And we used to have 15, 20 people at a time tardy during the day to classes. And today was it 4 or 5?
Yeah, 5 I think called down.
Because if they get 3 tardies, then they get 2 times coming into the Bronco Way as well. So that's kind of diminished some of our situations and stuff. So we're moving along and having some great things happen in our buildings, I think. So, and that's my report.
Are the power lunches working out? You like that?
Well, I tell you, I think I do. I think we can do a better job with it still. I don't know if we've used it to its fullest capacity yet. I think the kids have adapted to it really well. I still think that some of our kids that need the help don't always ask for the help. They have to be called there. And I'm hoping that we get to the point that they demand to go see the teacher to make sure they get stuff in place and taken care of. So I'm hoping the balance between the Bronco Way and the power lunches make that happen. So, but what we'll do, we'll still, I'm surveying the teachers again here on the 24th, and then we'll also do the students here a little bit later in the spring and kind of get their thoughts to see what we can do to make the system more effective. So,
Today must have been holiday day at the.
Yes, it was.
Because I was picking up my grandson and Uncle Sam came out of the building.
Yeah, Wyatt did.
That was awesome.
Yeah, no. And Wyatt did a wonderful job in the one act play tonight.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for Greg? All right.
Well, we made it outside for recess
I heard
yesterday
that.
afternoon, which was nice. For the first time since just about since we've been back from school, so that was nice. The kids need that. We've done a great job of. We open up the gym every morning, and the kids get to run and walk in there. But it's just they need to be outside. Just two things. One, I just wanted to supplement what Trish said about our computer use and our use in the school. I think the wireless updates that we've done and the wireless service is great. We have very few problems with connectivity with the iPads. So we have the Imagine Learning students use it first thing in the morning, and then the classrooms K through 3 use it because there's one set that they can use. They can take out or check out and use. Those work great, and then the 5, 6 kids obviously and the 4th graders have their one-to-ones, and we have them. I'm sure there's times, I'm sure Trish could tell me more, but when they're all on, when they're all being used, and we've not had any real connectivity issues with the newer devices. However, we don't have devices for K3 because the ones we do have are the old laptops in the computer lab. And when we've tried to use those for various things, it just doesn't work. And it's not because the technology wireless stuff isn't there, it's because the computers just aren't, they're just old. And so that's one of the things that, as we talk about this technology, I just want you to be aware of that our teachers and our kids are really starving for this and they're using it. But I think if we can at some point look at having them to the K3 level, they would just eat it up. I mean, they would use it and they would access it. And our teachers use the labs, but there's just only so much they can do with them. They're slower. We can't test on them. We can't do assessments on them. We can't do any of our technology-based learning on them. So it's probably the thing that she mentioned about what was the score for usage or whatever it was. It's not because the technology is there in the wireless. It seems to be working fine. The devices themselves. So.
Well, it's a proven fact that if you start them younger, by high school, they're like whiz.
Well, yeah, and they get it. When they use it, they use it well. I mean, the Imagine Learning kids are 4-year-olds up through 5th and 6th graders, and they're on there, and they're lickety-split. They get their own passwords. They know how to get on. They don't need any help. They just go on and start learning. So that's easy. And the last thing is, for those of you that watch the Facebook page, the Elf on the Shelf is retired for at least till next Christmas. He's on a beach in Hawaii somewhere. Until Miss Marquardt can talk him into it again, he'll probably stay there, but we'll see. The kids got a kick out of it. It was a fun day for the kids. So if you haven't checked the Facebook page out, you can look at it. And then I have more on the playground later. That's all I really have.
I have a question regarding the technology with the kids that young. Are there any studies that, I'm thinking to myself, building social skills and, going right to technology, is there any sort of a study there where it's almost better not to, or what are other schools doing?
Well, I can't answer the first part. I think it's accepted fact that our kids use technology. I mean, they have phones, they have whatever. I think without checking with every the school districts around here, there are many districts that have had one-to-one for some time. Garner's had it, Mason City's had it for at least a couple of years now, and that's K6, through there all the way through. And again, we wouldn't use it all day long, but it is something that is a very useful tool for certain types of activities, especially like the things that you were seeing before, when kids can Skype or can look at stuff, the teacher can give them assignments, they can access it, they can do their own searches, they can do their own writing. We have students, and there are a fair number, that struggle with the actual physical part of writing, and some of those we actually use that technology now. Some are special ed, some are not, to help them write, because it's just easier. You know, for some kids, it's just the physical act of writing is a hard thing. They're smart, they're bright, they're competent, but the writing sometimes gets in the way. So we use those as tools to help them as an alternative sometimes. They still have to practice the writing, but it helps them to get on with their learning sometimes. Yep.
Mr. Schlichting, if I could respond to that. You wouldn't want to put the kids in a situation where they're doing their lessons completely on their devices necessarily. But it can be a marvelous tool. For example, compared to the old way, we taught third graders to learn about money. The teacher would walk around with little plastic coins, and she'd give each student so many, and she'd say, "Okay, kids, give me 56 cents." And then she walks around to each student and said, "Yes, yes, no," add a quarter to that, and walks very slowly around the classroom. Now, you can give them their iPad, and there's an app on there that'll do that exact same thing. Multiple repetitions, immediate feedback. The kids love it, and the kids are learning much faster rate. Powerful thing that way. Teaching about time instead of the teacher with a big old cardboard clock in the front of the room or something like that. Every kid's got that clock, and it's interacting with them right at their places. The time on task explodes, and that's where the real learning can take place. Plus the fact that there are some schools out there that have these iPads down into the kindergarten, and they're learning coding starting in kindergarten.
The other thing for teachers, it's a great feedback thing, because if they give them a quick quiz, 4 questions, 3 questions on one lesson that they've done, the kids can type in the answer. The teacher, and I think one of the teachers showed you that she's got a device now where, you know, they can hold up the answer, and she just goes around the room and all the answers. So right now she knows, okay, 19 of my 20 kids got it right, we move on. We move to the next lesson. As opposed to 6 get it right, then we need to do some reteaching. So instead of having to grade papers or take homework home or, you know, have to bring stuff back, it's just such a much more immediate feedback for the teacher as well, and the kids.
And there are some studies that go along with it. I know Scott McLeod has had some that indicated that since behavior usually improves immensely with the tools, therefore the effectiveness of the classroom's environments gets much better for those kids as well, if it's used as a support mechanism, not just a standalone tool. Right? You know, that's the one thing, if I can get kids engaged and not bugging other kids, I'm winning.
We have additional opportunities now, though, because we are actually more aware of the digital bullying age. We have an opportunity for educational moments in the younger generation. Not because we're more aware of, for example, your daughter, who is in the upper level, the generations that we have now at the elementary, because we know there are studies out there as far as internet usage, gaming, the non-personalization of the screen. We actually have an opportunity now, better than we did 10 years ago, to actually teach the children, the students, how to be more responsible and not have that be just not a personal interaction with a device, because we're more aware now. So to kind of address your concern there in regard to that.
Did I understand you, Mark, that your point was if we use the one-on-one and we constantly get more technologically advanced at the lower grades, that we lose out on the verbalization, the socialization of the kids in the classroom or outside?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a concern. It's just, you know, something I was thinking about where, you know, it almost seems like we kind of throw them too early and they don't develop some of the basic skills. I didn't know what kind of data was out there, so I was just wondering.
And I don't have a great answer for that, other than I've seen what grade teaching does with those, when they can use this as a tool. And kids are much more engaged than they are with paper and pencil type stuff. Absolutely.
And that's why you have choirs and sports teams. Did anyone go? I apologize. I planned to go to the quarterly meeting on Monday night, but the weather was too horrible. Where they talked about broadband for Belmont. Did they? Okay.
Talked about College Town, right?
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't there either, but I went to the school, to the city council meeting afterwards, and that was the talk of the meeting.
Okay. Okay. All right, moving on to the action items. Major building repair request, handicap accessibility at Small Fields.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm gonna hand some handouts out here.
Stuff to cover.
Thank you. Mark, you want to use? We met a month ago, school board meeting, and since that time, I've gone forth and kind of developed this further, things we talked about, and gave some tentative approval for the meeting, or for the project. Communicated with Mr. Fisher and Dr. Frazier on some of these things to develop this. So if you kind of just stay with me here, I'll try to get through here in an orderly and expeditious manner. But the first page, just kind of a cover letter. The second page is really, I'll go back and cover these. The second two pages, the second and third pages are construction cost estimate. And then the fourth page is just a project schedule. We go to the fifth page, and that's kind of a fold-out page here. Okay? And that is the baseball and softball diamond. And some of the changes we made from the last time is to the north of the concession shelter building, and by the softball field, we expanded the concrete there and added 2 accessible parking stalls. They're the same drawing, one is just a larger scale on the other side. Any questions about this?
I can't see it, but are they, tell me where the parking spots are.
There's 2 parking spots just to the north of the concession shelter building, that's for the softball field, and there's 2 just to the south of that for the baseball field.
Okay, is that behind the bleachers then?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, on both sides.
Both sides.
Okay, go to the next sheet then. This is the football and track statement. And there's quite a bit of pavement there.
Well, I saw that.
It's about 18,500 square feet. It really hasn't changed much from the last one we did. I have shown on here the parking stalls. Now, accessible parking stalls, I'm showing 6, and I'm not sure the number we need. 6 by ADA, the American Disabilities Act, would accommodate 200 parking stalls, but then they do have quite a few accessible parking stalls per total number of parking stalls. I show 6. I think, Craig, you said that you felt there was, what, at least 3 or 4 people that would be using those?
At least 3 or 4 will come up to park their cars early, prior to the games.
But this would not be a spot where you, I don't think you want to park there.
Well, they park their vehicle there, and they're handicapped people, and they sit in that vehicle.
These would be
that
stalls
so
where
they don't
people, I
have to.
think, would get out and walk up.
Yeah.
And
Well, you'll get
and
some of them to
access
do that, but when it gets cold, they'll sit in there. And again, it's the idea that we'll have the handicap parking, they'll come up there and they'll have a spot. When you know they're reserved with a handicap, they won't have to park them early. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is we've got people that are handicapped that we have no handicap spots for right now. So they have to bring a car up so they can have a spot for it. And then somebody else typically will drive them up and drop them off.
So the question would really be, is 6 enough or too many?
I don't know for sure. I mean,
Can we add to it? I mean, add
You can always add more.
you can always add more.
Add
It is
more later.
flat concrete, so.
I don't think 6 would be too many to start with.
I don't think so either.
I really don't. Because we have our 3 or 4 here now, and then depending on who we're playing, what they bring, how they
Yeah,
travel.
we never accommodate
Yeah,
the other fans because we just don't know.
Right.
But they could use these.
Yes, they
Yes.
could. Yeah, especially since it'll be designated.
Especially if we use 3 and they came up with 3 people with handicap signs, they can
Yep.
all pull in there and use
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Since I can't see this, are you talking about the gate by the fence?
In the parking lot south of the fence.
Correct.
That's to the east side of the
You're
gate.
talking about 6 spots there that are paved.
Yeah, just to the east of that gate where you access the football tracks.
Right, you're talking about putting cement there. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
Pavement, yeah.
It's behind the end zone.
Yes, where they are now,
Yeah.
Yes.
same spot, yes.
And if you move to the north side of the permanent bleachers, the non-movable bleachers, that's where we're putting an accessible platform, the seating area with a ramp. Same area. I have a little bit different configuration than what I had before. We'll go to the next sheet. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just looked at different ways of configuring the ramp with that seating area for 10 accessible seating spots, wheelchair spots. And then to go to the last page, this is really what I kind of thought worked the best in terms of the seating in that particular area. And there's 10 spots. 5 spots are integrated into the existing bleachers, it's 1 through 5. And then there's a stairway between the other 5. The other 5 would be number 6 through 10. And there's a ramp that accesses all of them. But I moved the stairs over close to the bleachers, so before we had the stairs out on the north side over here, and so if people were accessing the bleacher by the stairs, they're always walking in front of the wheelchair spaces.
Yes.
And some people may not want that, so I thought to put it between here. Some people may want to sit there and have a lot of activity. I don't know, but this gives them an option of two different scenarios.
Was this like taking out that one level, so?
It actually goes up to the second
Right.
riser.
Yeah.
So there's adequate space to walk between the wheelchairs and the fence. All right. Questions about anything that we're looking to do in there? Go to the second sheet, and this is the construction cost estimate. And we're looking at 2 different types of pavement. One is concrete, one is asphalt. And with the baseball and softball stadium, the concrete option, we have $55,000 basically there. There's 10%, at this point I have 10% for miscellaneous contingency, so the total is about $55,000. And with asphalt pavement, with the contingency, we have about almost $48,000. And with that, there's about 7,500 square feet of pavement. Football stadium, concrete, I have basically 136,000, asphalt almost 118,000. Okay. The elevated wheelchair seating area, that's pretty costly. Okay. And I've been working with a supplier manufacturer that does this, that specifically does this. Okay. And what I looked at was what Hampton and Dumont had done their football stadium. And I'll pass this around. They're the same thing. So if you see one, you see the other. Keep this one on this side, this one on the other side. And this is what that looks like. So it's elevated, there's a ramp up to it, so it'd be similar to that. The way we have it drawn, integrated into the existing bleacher system, it becomes a custom assembly. Okay? So when you do that, it becomes very costly. Probably almost twice what we did. It's something that's standard. Okay. Now, if you do something standard, it's like what Hampton and Dumont did. They actually have bleachers on one side, you walk upstairs, or the ramp, and then you have the platform adjacent to the bleachers, but not integrated into the bleachers. So people are still somewhat segregated, in their own wheelchair spot. The way you've done it, if we looked at integrating it in, to be quite honest, the way you've done it is much more compliant with ADA than having a separate segregated area. Now, the ADA is a law, but it's only enforceable through the civil court systems. Okay? But the state of Iowa has adopted the ADA also. Okay? You know, and who enforces the ADA through the state in terms of building projects for schools is the state fire marshal's office. Okay? when I talk to the state fire marshal's office, they really don't get involved in stadiums. They're told, we don't review that. So you don't need to send it down to us for our review. And even their feedback in terms of what they thought was, acceptable or legal in their terms, they really didn't want to make a judgment on it. Because most stadiums out there, if you're building a new stadium, that's different. But if you're taking an existing stadium and trying to modify like you're doing, it appears there's a lot more leeway. It just seems like, are you making a good attempt? Okay. But the way we looked at doing this was integrating into the bleacher system. That is about almost as compliant as can be. The only thing I think you could get caught on is line of sight, but then you'd have to have almost an elevator to get somebody up higher, so I think it's almost impractical. But I just want to point that out. The way you've integrated it is probably more compliant with the law than if you have it off to the side, something segregated. But it's up to you. It's probably twice as much, almost twice as much, to have it integrated in. So it's kind of up to you.
I think it would look nicer though.
What?
I think it would look nicer.
I think it would
Integrated
feel
in.
more,
Part of it.
accepting and welcoming, certainly.
Right.
The concrete versus the asphalt. Is there like a life expectancy of?
Yeah, I think with the concrete, you're probably looking at 40 to 50 years. And with asphalt, you're probably looking more like 20 years, 15. What happens with, with asphalt is really make a stone aggregate, and then it has petroleum products and binders in it, and over time, the petroleum products and binders are released, they are released from the pavement itself, and so that over time you have to seal coat those. You see people with black. You're going to be a lot more happy with concrete. We can bid it both ways, and I'm not going to charge you to do both ways. Asphalt, one is a lot of this work is going to involve asphalt. Is a little paver, 8 foot wide. It's going to be a lot. There's going to be handwork. There's going to be, instead of a dump truck to a big paver, there's going to be a skid loader to the paver. So the quality and top, you can't get as good a tolerance as you can like on a track or on a highway. So you're not going to get as good a quality in terms of levelness or slope. Okay. With asphalt, it's going to be black, so it's going to be hot in the summer. So with softball and baseball, I would almost think that almost preclude using it there. Football and track may be a little different. My concern is that the bleachers, the weight of them, you set that on this asphalt, is it going to sink in? And I've heard stories where people have motorcycles and the kickstand sit in asphalt, and the kickstand is sunk into the asphalt. So I'm concerned about if we do asphalt with these bleachers, then maybe we don't put asphalt underneath. Either put concrete underneath them or just leave the gravel. So I think, I guess if we bid them both ways, then we can get the prices and maybe you can make a decision. The price would be weighed on your decision.
I have a question again about the softball and baseball field, since I can't see what you're showing there. The concrete on the south side, and maybe Greg can help me, on the south side already has some cement there that they grill on. Now you're going to extend that out further, Greg?
Yes, to the end to the north end of the dugout. It'll go to the back. Yeah, they'll put the back or the west edge of the concession stand next to that grilling area.
Yes.
Go back east to the fence and south all the way to the front of the north side of the dugout.
Under the bleachers then?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Under the
Yes.
bleachers. And we have to do that under the bleachers there?
I'd suggest you do that. Makes it a lot easier for cleanup.
And people had wheelchairs.
Yeah,
And then,
beside it.
and then if cars pulled up to let a wheelchair person out, is there significant room between where they grill and where these 2 parking spots are to get these people out?
Yeah, on the end of it, yes, there is.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see it, so I was just asking.
Is she on are you on your cell phone right now, Jane?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to text you a picture of this that you can look at
Okay.
later. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
I was gonna mention that both the football field and the softball, baseball field, with the concrete being underneath the bleachers, that's gonna cut the cleaning time down quite a bit for being able to clean up after events.
It would, yes.
Yes. I mean, significantly over 1-2 seasons, it won't be that much, but over long term, that will help add up too.
Can you tell me what the costs are that you have there?
I'll take a picture of that too.
All right, great.
Technology.
Yeah, great.
You want to go through this, the schedule quickly, the preliminary schedule? I kind of worked around this with some dates that Mr. Fisher's given me, that, you know, January 18th is tonight, we're looking at getting authorization to proceed with construction documents. We complete the construction documents around March 8th, so we'd have them for your March 15th board meeting. And at that time, you would we have authorized to put them out for bid. We'd issue them shortly thereafter. We have notice of bidders to be posted, notice of public hearing to be posted. We'd receive the bids on April 16th, and then at the board meeting on April 19th, we'd have the public hearing and the award of construction contract. Now, construction, you know, we have to work around the seasons, okay? So we can't start the football field and track field, stadium work until after track season is completed, but we have to have it done before the beginning of football season. Well, I think well before that. And again, baseball and softball seasons start even well at the end of track season, and they're going to end sometime in July. If you look at this, so my point is, it's going to be real difficult for the contractors that maybe to do the project all at one time. They have to, we'll leave it up to them. They have to be done in two portions. It's possible it could be done, they could start on the football field and track and then go to the baseball field and get it completed within a window there, okay? Right. And that, I preferably they'd probably want to do that, okay? But we're saying the football and track stadium cannot begin until May 2nd. That's probably dependent on snow days, so probably.
Well, actually, that's our last track meet is on that date.
Okay.
So then after that, you can do anything you want.
Anything you want, okay.
And then baseball, softball, since the season will already be going prior to the letting of the bids, we'd have to do it the second week of July.
I think you had told me the season was like July 27th, is that right?
Well, that'd be the state.
State tournament.
State,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So
Yeah.
they may be able to start sooner.
Our last home game would be scheduled that second week of July.
Okay, well, that gives us a bigger window to get it all done in one project.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll melt.
So I can change that to what, the 14th you're saying, July 14th?
Yeah, I think sooner than that, but yeah.
So that was the last day, the last game was the 14th?
Well, I think it's before that, but I think it's in that week before, yeah.
No, we can check it.
I have one more question for you, if you can. And you, I think the last time you'd mentioned if we decide to go ahead with improvements as far as getting a bigger track, that's not gonna affect that at all? I mean, is it gonna paint us into a corner
A bigger
by doing
track.
it?
Like an 8-lane track.
To go for an 8-lane?
If you go to an 8-lane track, I mean, you don't have any room to expand to the west anyways. I mean, we'd have to expand to the east.
We have to take the track to the east. And we have room over there, it just makes us tight.
We'd
with
have to
bleachers.
redo the
So
football
we're
field, put a
not
new
boxed
crown.
in.
Correct.
I'm just making sure as your future, I mean, if we get concrete, that's a 50-year thing, that we're not painting ourselves in a corner that way. And let's just say that we improve the handicap accessibility and decide that we need way bigger bleachers than this. I mean, is that gonna, is it gonna keep us optionable as far as making improvements going forward?
You'll be fine to do that. What they would do is cut into the concrete, drill a hole, and put the pylon or the metal beam down that hole, and you're fine.
Like what you say, or what you say?
What?
No,
For what,
bleachers, if we're to expand bleachers or whatever.
We could always
They
add
can-
removable
they-
bleachers.
Yeah, you can do that, temporaries, or you can actually, they cut the concrete through, put the hole in the ground, make your pylon,
Right.
and go on.
The newer
So-
bleachers you have, like they set on rails. You set those on a concrete slab.
You should bolt them right to the slab. Or just set them, or.
You set, yeah, I don't think you bolt, just set them. You
skyboxes behind.
What?
We have skyboxes up above the
Right.
box now.
That doesn't sit on the concrete slab.
That's for the rich lawyers.
Food, water, eat.
Watch the game on TV.
We could sell that skybox for about $1,000 a game or something.
Yeah, I've got things in like, we're gonna have to excavate out, put in the pavement, the gravel and the soil disposal, do some excess of that. Take the bleachers, take the removal bleachers and move them and then reinstall them. And we're gonna have some accessible park install striping and signs. I don't have anything for any kind of drainage system or we encounter poor soil, I guess I don't anticipate.
Jackie, the messages came, but it wouldn't download them for me. Something with your attachments, so. Could you guys just give me the total cost for the asphalt versus the cement?
Are you sitting down?
Yeah, yes.
For the
I am.
baseball and softball, the concrete cost is $55,893, and asphalt is $47,700. For the football and track, concrete is $135,857, and asphalt is $117,654, and the wheelchair seating is $55,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
These are some pretty big numbers, but it's a lot of payment and it's not, a lot of it's not easy to lay. Okay, I guess what I typically do at this point is have conservative numbers, so we get it in the budget. The other thing is, when you bid it, you're not sure what level of competitive bids you're gonna receive also. Okay? So if the contractors are real busy, bids will be higher. If not, you'll get more competitive bids.
I'm still wondering about the concrete under bleachers. I know you say it might be easier to clean up, but sometimes I wonder, if there's gum or candy or pop still there or whatever, versus just our gravel we have now. What are your thoughts there, Greg or whoever?
Well, from a personal perspective, I'd rather have the concrete. And the reason why is the cleanup is a lot quicker when they're walking on it, because we're putting people underneath there. When they go pick up trash, and it's a lot easier for them to pick it up. Yeah, we might have some gum spots, but that's minor in the long run. The other thing I'll tell you, rock throwing is one concern I always had. The nice young ladies last year made a huge pile of rocks, and all of a sudden they're coming chucking through the air. They're just having fun, but it's stuff like that you worry about.
Well, we'll still have rocks because the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll have some, but we'll be right where the fans are.
Yeah. And will we have any drainage problems on that north end? Because we always have water and stuff there. Is that going to cause any problems with any of this?
The survey's been done in the baseball and softball field. It looks flat and it is flat. There's not much drainage there. So when you introduce pavement, that water is going to run someplace. You're going to have less infiltration into the ground, and it's going to find its way off the pavement and to the ground eventually. And so it'll probably be muddier than what it currently is, unless we could.
Well, you'll slope it away from the baseball field because that's the way the driveway goes. It goes to the west.
But it's pretty flat across there now.
Yeah, but it's still better than sloping it back towards the baseball field.
Well, yeah, you don't want, you don't
Our
want that.
baseball field and softball field drain like a son of a.
It's
They're
the
beautiful.
softball that's usually the bad one.
It's worse than the baseball, but both of them are nice. Last year we had a game that both of them could have been rained out and they weren't because our fields drained so well, but our parking lot was soaked.
That's what's what.
Yes, parking lot is bad.
Yeah, north end of the softball parking is horrendous, and that's not gonna change. I don't think it'll impact it negatively or positively by what we're doing. There's just not enough.
Now, the football and track stadium, that grade slopes to the west. There is a little bit of slope there. Not a lot, but a little.
Well, and to the south it slopes too on that entryway.
South slopes too, yeah.
They graded that up several years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, that
Gridiron Club.
the baseball field doesn't have much slope, but the football field has a nice slope to it. But you'll have to remove some to get back down to the street level.
What we're proposing for an architectural fee is 8% of the construction cost. And that's really kind of based upon, well, first of all, we look at percentage-wise for construction. We think that's a fair way to do it and an easy way to gauge it. So if the scope of work changes, then the fee changes accordingly. In other words, if something's added or deleted, then I don't have to come back and say I need $5,000 more or something like that. It is adjusted along with the construction cost. Okay. And the 8% is really kind of based upon a number of things. One is the size of the project, one is the complexity of the project. It's not a complex project, but it's a relatively small project. Okay. And some of the things, whether you have a $200,000 project or a $12 million project, you have the same time involved, especially like the requirements when you're doing a small project or large project, really the same amount of time.
Dr. Fraser, is this coming out of Pepple?
Pepple and sales tax, yes.
And are we okay with that amount?
Easily, yes.
Okay.
We've got over $2 million in reserve.
Okay.
Now the fee, we're going to do the alternate. That's part. That's part. There's no extra charge for that. All our travel and mileage is included in the fee, so we don't charge for that. The only reimbursable expense I would expect is that we put out drawings and project manuals to bid. So whatever that cost is, and we send it out to have it done, then we add 10% to that. I don't expect any other things. I mean, according to the state, we don't have to send it in. So there's no application fee to the state.
I'm just wondering, and I don't know how everybody else feels, because you probably feel differently because you have it all in front of you. But I'm just thinking now that we have the actual plans and the cost, would it be good for us to think about it until next meeting, or does everybody feel like they want to move already?
Well, Ed, you kind of need us to move tonight in order to keep on that timeline to act in March, correct?
Yeah, we were looking at putting out for bid in March, getting it back in April. If we put it off a month, then that puts you out getting the bids back in May, which is pretty late.
Pretty late for getting what done, or
Yeah, getting
it bid.
Getting a bid, yeah, getting a contractor. They'll be busier, and some of the work could start then in May or end of May.
Sooner the better, usually.
Especially this time of year.
we probably will not do the softball and baseball this year then, probably? Is that what you're saying, or after the season?
After the season.
Okay.
Can I add something here for information, or the?
Sure.
Okay. As the track coach, I probably spent more time out there than a lot of people. And one of the things that we did a few years ago is we resurfaced our current track. And we did a patch job. We did a $65,000 top addition. And I was out there quite a bit. As I was talking to the gentleman that actually did a lot of work, including working at Drake, and he really cautioned us on the subsurface of our track. And he said it might last another 5 years. We're lucky. It's splitting, it's cracking, and the worst thing about our subsurface in our track is it's going like this. It's got a vertical problem. So if you're going down the track, you're sometimes seeing people stubbing their foot a little bit. It's because the track is getting in bad shape. That's something we're going to have to consider in the future. And then, as was mentioned, that's an opportunity for us to look whether we want to stay with the 6-lane track or 8-lane track. And that's going to be coming sooner than we think.
Right.
Okay. So as we're going through all this, I haven't seen any of the plans. I'm kind of picking up bits and pieces here. We really need to keep in mind that we need to set our fences back. So we are prepared if we do have an opportunity, whatever it might be, to go 8-lane if we want to at that time. I wouldn't handcuff ourselves right now, sticking those fences where they're at, and then add 40 or 50 years of concrete right at the outside that's going to have to be replaced if we do that. So I would really focus on setting those fences back in preparation for that. So that pushes everything back, including our perimeter fence out a little bit farther. Okay. In addition to that, we have other needs like the long jump and things like that. And one other thing I want to mention, and I'll stop. is that our facility is one of the very few facilities that does not provide really good visitor seating, permanent visitor seating. And that's something that if we're gonna do handicap on our side, we gotta make sure we do it on their side. We gotta provide on their side. Dollar figures, when you're talking about $100,000 here and $100,000 there, you know, if something happens out at that track and we get a lawsuit from not being where we need to be, that's gonna be a small number. So we need to move forward on this project. We need to keep certain things in mind. So I would definitely talk about pushing those fences back, giving ourselves some more room. Our home bleachers, that's tight, those can slide back if we need to do that in the future or whatever it might be. But we really need to sit down and look, make a master plan down the long run.
The home bleachers have steel posts that are set in concrete piers.
Right.
So if you're gonna do some
They
of the home
don't-
bleachers, you're gonna tear them down.
You gotta tear the whole thing down.
Right.
Because there is no way to get under the bleachers without leaving the fence exactly where it's at.
In 2002, we went through this process and we looked at that, about moving our bleachers to the visitor side. Because they were actually, they're actually built really solid, really simple. Bolts, you can unbolt them, pick them up, put them on the side, put piers on the other side, put new home bleachers with handicap accessibility. All those plans were turned into Mr. Frakes when he was here as the superintendent, and they went with the plans. We had a $50,000 bid to put brand new bleachers on our side. 2002. So that was nice. And so we were going to move our bleachers to the visitor side, so we actually had permanent seating for the home and the visitor. There's things there that I haven't seen what you've got drawn up there, but I hope it's part of the idea of providing handicap accessibility to the other side.
Thank you.
If you expand your field and make it an 8-lane track, you're gonna push that to the east, right? At that time, you would redo the bleachers on the east side and make that handicap accessible, is that?
Well, I think you look at, you look at Brad's option, tearing down all that, you also tear down your press box, you move back your light poles, and you basically create a whole new stadium. The only thing you leave in place is the field where it is right now. If you expand it to the east, like Dr. Fraser said, you're gonna have some cost because you're gonna have to recrown the field. One way or the other, or you go back to your 6-lane track. I can tell you right now, our conference is 18 teams, so it's hard to host that conference track meet on a six-place lane.
At
Not
Northwood,
impossible.
Kansas, about 5 years ago, we did that. We went to an 8-lane track. We put new home bleachers in, left the visitor bleachers where they're at, so we took the existing bleachers out, put new ones in, built a press box. At that time, it was about $850,000. So to give you an idea, if you do that, in other words, relocate all those, you're talking about, now today's cost is probably about $1 million.
That's what I would thought.
But keep in mind, we're gonna have to replace the base of our track and the entire 6 lanes.
That's probably 500,000.
That's half of the project right there.
The base of the track, that's just asphalt. They'd have to go in.
Well, you gotta do the whole track.
Right, the whole thing.
In 2002, when we crowned this field, it's in a beautiful shape, so you're not
That
gonna wanna regrade it.
$850,000
Crown
is a new track too.
Yeah.
You're gonna wanna leave the football field where it is. You're gonna wanna push things. Our current grandstands at our side, if you did flip them to the other side, fit exactly between the light poles. So there's no moving light poles on the visitor side. You'd have to do some work on the home side. And then booster clubs have been after us for years, or not booster club, but gridiron, about tearing down our press box and replacing that anyway. So that's just another project that somebody else would take on. So there's community groups that would take on the project. So
as far as the timeline goes, are we really rushed to do this, or, I mean, would it be a bad thing for contractors to do it over the summertime, or
That's
right
when
before?
they're gonna do it.
That's when it's scheduled.
Right, but,
But they get their work scheduled out for the summer in
right.
March, April, May, starting now, January. So they're not busy now. You wait till May, we wait till May to bid it. You probably get higher bids. People will get higher bids.
So if we waited 1 month to decide on this, couldn't you go with the bids right away then, like the 1st of March?
it's gonna take us, you know, probably a good month to get the drawings done, the construction drawings done, a good month plus. And then it takes about a month to bid, because you have your requirements for,
So you could let bids maybe the 1st of April?
no.
No?
Well, you'd have to, right now, I mean, it's gonna take us a good month, okay, to get our work done. Plus, okay, probably a month plus. So to get it done by the February board meeting would be pretty difficult for us. That's why I had getting it to the board, March board meeting, putting it out for bid, and getting the bids back for the April board. Now, maybe have a special board meeting, 2 weeks early or something, and we could probably make that, But to get it done in a month is gonna be a little pressing for us right now.
Is there any possibility of splitting this project up and doing the baseball and softball this year? Because that seems a little bit more set in stone.
Yeah.
And then, because my concerns are Brad's concerns. I don't want, and Mark's concerns, I don't want to concrete in stuff and then we got to rip it all out because we need an 8-lane track and we can't move
But
it.
maybe that's what happens this next year, that you really sit down and have a group, your athletic people and
Right.
board member too, and figure out what you really want to do over there and what it's going to cost also.
Right. I think I'm
okay with that. That makes
I would
sense.
feel more comfortable with doing phase 1 and then look at phase 2 and not be rushed into a decision that we might regret.
I actually think you could probably do some cement from the street to that outside fence level.
Like do the handicap parking
Correct.
thing. Yes.
And not attack the other area if you want to, then you get to determine how far you want to take that next project. Do you want to make it a full-blown stadium? Do you want to make it 6-lane? You guys get to decide that, and then you proceed with your bid from that point. If that's, the
That's
way.
a good idea.
But that way you have the handicap parking spots there and the walkout.
And maybe even the north entrance thing.
And that's a perimeter fence that has to get pushed out first. On the south.
That's
If you're gonna move this fence back on the inside by the track, you get it too close to the fence line inside, so you gotta push the perimeter fence out just a little bit, so you can take it.
Well, yeah, but we can put cement in there, Brad, it's not a big deal. We just have to allow for that to happen, but we can still pour it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just,
We just
have a plan on the fence.
We just have a line of grass in between. Yeah, we'd have to plan on that,
Yes.
but we could still pour it, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So if we're just doing the baseball, softball, then we could probably get that done by the next board meeting too. Okay. I'll come back and take a look at our schedules. That's a possibility. This is a lot of those work.
Since I don't have that in front of me, can you just describe for me in the baseball and softball, is there just a path of cement along to the fence, except around the concession stand? Is that what you've decided?
If you can visualize this, you have the baseball field in the south, softball field in the north, and
Yes, I
then
have the
kind of
old-
in the middle, but toward the west of those is the concession shelter building.
Right, right.
So if you go from the baseball field, the dugout of the baseball field, that north
Right.
wall, that little north wall, and you
Yes.
go all the way to the north to the south wall of the dugout of the softball field, okay? You
Yes,
kind of draw a line across there. And
Yeah.
and then, okay, that's, just kind of think of that as your east boundary. And if
Right.
your west boundary really is about along the west side of the concession shelter building, okay?
yes,
And it's the same, basically the same length, okay, approximately.
I see,
And
okay.
then you just draw a line between the two on the north and south side, so it gives you that rectangular area. And there's also an area, an eastern area that goes out to the east to cover the backstop area, okay?
Yes.
Did you understand that?
That's
Yes, and
all
what's
concrete,
that?
Jane.
Pardon me?
It's all concrete, it's not just a path. All the way to
That
the
was my
bleachers from the
question, I guess,
concession
yes.
stand is concrete.
From the gate, most gates to the
No.
concession?
No.
No.
She has no understanding of what we're talking about. The gates.
Yeah, I understand you're around the concession stand. I'm just wondering from the gate, when you come in.
There's
No, that's
nothing
gravel.
for the gates at all. Zero, nada. The gates are still rock.
Okay,
And the parking lot is rock. The only thing that's paved is right around the concession stand, and it's a rectangular piece going from the north edge of the south dugout for the baseball diamond to the dugout for the softball diamond on the south edge. And if you draw a rectangle, the only difference is there is a little piece in the northwest corner of that rectangle that will still be rock.
okay.
Otherwise, it's everything is concrete around this concession stand.
Okay, I see that, I understand that now. My concern is people still walking in, I thought we would talk about that walking through onto the rock. I thought at one time we talked about putting like a sidewalk by the fence, by the road, for people to walk on, but that's not there anymore, is that correct?
I don't ever recall that, Jane. In all my, I have been here just a short time, but there has never
We
been.
talked about that earlier, Gary, I think.
Oh, that must have been a previous meeting before I got on the board.
Yes, because the rocks are so bad, you know, in that area, they're so large and people have difficulty walking on those.
Well, then we probably should pave the whole thing. And I don't know that we're ready
Well, we
to do
just talked
that.
about a sidewalk is all we talked about by the, but that's okay. I just wanted to make sure what I was talking about here, what I was looking at or what you were talking about. That's okay. It's just that one area that's cement then. Okay, got it.
All right, so we're looking for a motion of some sort, I think.
I think we are, but I don't know what we're gonna do.
Well, I think you've got two choices. You do the whole thing and say, go for it. Or you say, we're just doing one piece or the other piece. It's one of those three choices.
I personally like the idea of just, I like the way the softball and baseball's figured out. I like taking a little more time on the track, personally. Like a 2 or 3 phase out project.
Yeah, because we're probably looking at least a year out then on that.
Right.
Or 2 or 3. Well, we don't, but I always thought this was mostly about handicapped, and we're not addressing that at all at the football field, if we set that off for a year. I mean, I'm just saying that because that was the focus of all of this, basically, was to accommodate the handicapped. And at this point, will it be accommodating only those people at softball and baseball, but zero, nada, for the football field?
It's true, but eventually we will. At the football field.
The nice thing about concreting is that you gotta saw it anyway, so you can add onto it nicely, so we could do a portion of it. I mean, it's just throwing an idea out there.
I understand. I'm just saying.
I understand too.
Or we could do
I think we
the
should do
concrete
the
parking thing at the south end of the
and then
football field.
pave this and get the bleachers set up for that.
I think we should do.
I think we should.
Say, what kind of prompted this, I think initially, wasn't it, Dr. Fraser, that we're looking at just doing some wheelchair spaces there on kind of north end of the bleachers, so people with listening want to come into that 4 feet. So maybe you could do an area for them to sit in there, you know, and then we'll just bring a sidewalk in that gate. And then maybe do the parking stalls outside the fence area there too, so people could, if they're parking there, are they gonna park there and watch the game then? Is that what you're thinking?
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes, it's only extreme weather. Most of the time, they just pull the car out.
But they don't really need hard pavement if they're just gonna pull up and, are they gonna go to the restroom and concessions on possible?
Possibly. Well, I know one who is wheelchair bound comes into the game all the time.
So he would get out of the vehicle on the paving and then roll into the game.
Yeah, he and his guardians do all the time.
Sure.
And they struggle.
Yes, they do, mightily.
Yes.
I guess my thought is that when we did all the renovations, we started with baseball and softball, and that was phase 1, and then we did the auditorium, then we air conditioned this building, and we built Jacobson. And we didn't do them all at once. We did them in
No,
pieces.
it's true.
And I think we could maybe approach this the same way.
Fun. I don't have much skin in the game. It seemed like the conversation was mostly focused on doing the handicap thing, and all of a sudden, we've lost our focus on the handicap piece
I don't
for
think,
football and track, but.
I don't think we have. I just don't think we want to lock ourselves in with 50-year concrete when we might end up having to move an entire football field and a track.
I agree with you, Jackie. I don't think we've lost our focus at all. I think we're still working towards that until we come up with a reasonable, what we think is the right thing to do at the football field. We just start with the softball and baseball.
And as long as we're transparent about what we're trying to do, it's not going to be like, they're fixing this and not this. I mean, as long as we say, hey, this is our vision,
Right.
people will understand that. I don't
And
think we can
get
take
people to come in, like the Gridiron or whatever, and the Booster Club, and say, how would you guys like to see this? What are your ideas? How would you like to help with this project? Because maybe we could get volunteer people to powder coat the, whatever. I mean, those are things, I was on that same committee with Brad back 15 years ago, whenever that happened. And we did talk about all those things. So I still need a motion of some sort. Or it will die from lack of promotion. And we'll move on.
I will make a motion that we will ask Scott and Anderson to begin the construction documents for the baseball and softball field only at this time. And we will be working on the accessibility for the football field at a later date.
Thank you, Sharon.
Can you repeat that for me? I didn't hear it all, Jackie.
Holy crap. Okay. The motion is that we will ask Scott and Anderson to begin making the documents for the baseball and softball fields at this time and work on the football and track field at a later date. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mark. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one question. Does he have two prices there for cement or whatever, and is she saying one or the other?
She did not, and yes, he does.
So do we need to clarify that or not?
I think he said he would get alternate bids, so we'll know the price of each before we make a final decision.
From the
Okay.
construction
Thank
companies
you.
themselves, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, say yes.
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 All opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes unanimously, and we will begin with the baseball and softball.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Do you want these pictures back from Hampton?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Do you want the Hampton pictures back? Ed, do you want these back?
You can keep those.
We're really gonna talk about that later.
Because I like his idea of integrating them in rather than stashing them on the end of it.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea of just sticking a pad at the north end of the thing and saying, park the handicapped folks up there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is just awful.
Right.
I would never vote in favor of that.
Okay. 6C, Board Policy Revision 905.1, Community Use of Facilities and Equipment. In the board book, Dr. Frazier had some suggested language added in the second paragraph. Do you want me to just go ahead and read that, Dr. Frazier? Or?
Well, I would like to introduce it with the with that previous page. There's some advice there from our attorney, Danielle Haydenfield. If you recall, the board approved that, requested that she be our counsel, legal counsel. I think you approved that at the October meeting. I have since met with her, and by the way, she did have one question. Is there a sign on the edge of town that says birthplace of Danielle Jess Haydenfield? She was in fact born in Belmont, and so she was delighted to be able to work with this board.
Maybe she's going to make a donation toward that sign.
Yeah. Or towards the new.
Anyway, so she is very familiar with the area, but she does point out very simply the legalities of this. The board has the privilege of being able to make a blanket policy that would exclude specific days or specific times on specific days. But just understand that there has to be a blanket policy, and there cannot be saying, we don't allow basketball tournaments, but we do allow churches. There can't be any kind of favoritism that way. And she raises the question, what if a church were to have a fire and they needed an alternative place to host their services? We could not accommodate them here. So that would be the double-edged sword of making a strict policy like this. However, if the board would like to pursue this policy further, if you go to the next page, I suggest just a simple sentence like the one I've italicized and added to our existing policy. School district facilities and equipment shall not be made available on Sundays prior to 12 noon.
I would move that we adopt the proposed amendment to our board policy for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you. Gary, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mark?
I really feel strongly about this. I don't think our schools should be open for any purpose Sunday mornings, period. I believe that from a matter of accommodation to the churches who have Sunday schools, who have reasons for kids to be available to go to Sunday school or to go to the park and worship their Lord in any way they wish or feel. But I think that when we start up, we need to stop this stuff on Sunday mornings in our school, and that's why I would like to see us adopt that amendment to our policy.
I would want to question too, what some of the other schools in the other areas, do you know, Dr. Frazier, at all?
I'm not aware of any other school districts. Our attorney is not aware of any school districts that restrict to a specific time of day. She thought it was a unique question when I posed it to her.
So they do allow them on Sundays?
We don't.
There would be some schools that do not allow it on Sundays, and some any at all on Sunday, and there would be some school districts that allow it any and all days on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any?
Well, there might be an instance, you know, we've had some funerals at the school too. I don't know if there'd ever be an instance when they'd have it on a Sunday morning, but then we would have to say no to that also. I know the school, it's not really a school function, so I guess I'm in favor of us leaving it the way it is. That's my personal opinion.
And you're free to vote no on this
Yes. Yes,
motion. Any further?
Callie wants to say something. I don't know if she can.
And I did not know this was on the agenda, so I haven't prepared anything, but as the co-coordinator of the BCBC basketball tournament with Lee Faubourg, we even put in our rules, we are attempt, if at all possible, to not start before noon ever on a Sunday for our tournament. In fact, that's why we had boys on Sunday this year, because typically in the boys, we've had 5-6 hours of tournament max and done. And so our plan was to start at noon and be done by 6. Unfortunately, we just had this explosion of registrations, because we normally have girls Sunday.
There's another way to do that though, Callie. They could have had the gyms going this way and had 2 games going at once instead of.
Unfortunately, we need some seating in pieces, and I understand that. I end up finishing the coordination part of the tournament because about 2 weeks ago I kind of removed myself before they'd actually made the schedule. That was our intent though. But in response to do other schools do it? Yes, basically everyone. When we talk about West Hancock, Clear Lake, Garner Hayfield, Eagle Grove, Clarion Goldfield, we all work together, and almost every single one has about the same format. Saturday, Sunday, boys on one, girls on the other, or something similar. I'm trying to think what other schools. North Iowa, Lake Mills, we kind of all work together and we all kind of plan our dates together. So we try not to, I mean, for instance, we try not to.
So going with that logic, then a kid could be tied up 8 Sundays, you know, going to all these different places. That doesn't make it right.
No, and it doesn't. I'm just saying, if you make a change, that's fine. I'm just simply sharing why that and how it ended up that way.
But Jane, it isn't a choice when a kid is going to let their team down by not showing up for the game. You're putting that kid in a terrible position, and that family.
I still think that's their choice, but I would not be opposed to not having it open till noon, but I wonder afternoon and evening. Do we ever have any banquets, you know, on Sunday nights using that area? Have we had any this year, Greg?
We have one coming up here shortly. We have the National Honor Society, but it's at Cattleman's, but we do have a 5 o'clock event on a Sunday because that's about the only time there's not an activity scheduled. That is the only one I know.
Using our facility.
No, it's not using our facility, but it is a school function.
Our suggestion is till noon.
Till noon, yeah, Jane, we didn't say nothing on Sunday, but the policy proposal is nothing from midnight at Saturday night until noon on Sunday, nothing at the school for anything.
And Jackie, I'm not saying that we don't want to work with you. I mean, we've worked really hard to make sure that coaches are clear, nothing on Wednesdays. So I'm going to try to do just some open, not mandatory, and every single time the board shut them down saying, no, we're not doing Wednesdays, we're not doing Wednesdays. And I'm not saying we wouldn't enforce that too, it's just there's a few examples where we can't work around it. For instance, we have football, and every once in a while they have games starting at noon, so we start working on the field at 9 a.m. I mean, we do the best we can. If you shut it down, we'll work around it. But I'm not saying it shouldn't change, I'm just sharing kind of what the thinking is.
I don't think we're talking about adults here, Callie. You know, there's adults working on the field. I don't know that we can stop people from walking on the track on Sunday morning or whatever. We're talking about kids' activities being scheduled.
I guess what I'm saying is if YFSF comes back and says a game's at noon.
Sundays on football?
Yeah, they play Sunday afternoons typically. I've seen that.
Just Sunday afternoon?
Yeah,
yeah, they would.
They would play football on Sunday afternoons. I've seen lots of kids out there playing on Sunday afternoon.
Yes, they do.
They don't play Sunday morning, Callie?
No.
Is she there?
I am here, Jane. No, the soonest that YSF allows games is 11:30 on a Sunday. Kevin's typically tried to push for later, but there are times when they've said 11:30 and we don't have control over that, and so Kevin's been at the field at 8 a.m. working on it.
So is that okay then? They changed this policy?
They can still play Sunday, but they have to wait until noon.
Okay, they can't start at 11:30 then?
No, they can't.
They can?
No.
Cannot.
No.
They cannot.
Okay, I got it.
Move for the question.
All right. We have had the question called, so we will vote. All in favor of, I want to read this exactly right. School district facilities and equipment shall not be made available on Sundays prior to 12 noon. Say yes.
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 All opposed, say no.
No.
No. The motion passes. Staffing of secondary administrative positions.
Okay, the board at the last meeting asked to discuss the idea of splitting out activity director duties from the secondary principal duties. It was a discussion item last month, and the board asked to bring it back as an action item this month. If the board chooses to make this decision, I suggest we do it in 3 phases. First off, the board could make the decision that they'd like to split this position, in which case the administration could come back with a proposal about how we would realign these positions. Then after we've got a new position, new job description, why then the third phase would be hiring our personnel to go with the position. We shouldn't combine any of those because we need to be fair and equitable in who we assign to this duty.
So you're saying just phase 1 tonight, split it up?
Correct.
All right, is there a motion to split the activities director position from the secondary principal position?
I'll make that motion.
Rick, is there a second? Mark, okay. Any further discussion on this?
Can you just read it to me, because I didn't hear you, Jackie, you cut out. Sorry.
The motion is to separate the athletic director position from the secondary principal position and make them 2 positions.
All right, thank you.
And we're just really mostly talking about the principal position right now, right? That no longer would he be the AD, and then in the next phase we'll talk about the athletic director and what that looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
The paid AD. He'd still be an unpaid AD at times.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, Greg.
You have to be. I understand.
Wow, that's mean. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of splitting the 2 positions, say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Opposed, no? Motion passes unanimously. Sherry, finally. She's gonna give us all a big tax rebate.
That's what I'm here for.
Awesome.
Just like the federal government, it's gonna be kickbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all our state taxes will go up.
They'll give us the money that they're gonna give Eagle Grove.
I knew that was.
I went.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I was there. Yeah, you'd have been, lost your blood pressure.
I was out.
They have their minds made up.
Of course they did.
Stands is gonna not run.
So you'll be smart. Yeah. He wants to have somebody that actually represents.
No, not them. They still get their
Yeah.
double. They still get the same money they've got before, plus they get the double. Yeah. Mine was.
We don't have to go through all this.
I hope so.
Okay.
That's your personal assessment role right there.
Gary and Rick, I apologize, you're gonna hear some of the same stuff you heard
No.
on Monday. Basically what I'm doing is I'm going around to all the city councils and all the school boards. We've had a lot of turnover and stuff, so I just wanted everybody to just kind of know how the tax process works and kind of what my duties and responsibilities are. I'm going to show you just a short video first, and then I just have a short presentation
Notice it's Bremer County.
to show you.
There you go, Trish.
Okay. Now this video I did borrow from another assessor from another county, so that's why it says Bramer County up there. But we all follow the same rules, so it will be the same for us as it is for them.
So there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of assessors and how they affect the property tax that homeowners pay. When someone hears the term assessor, they seem to think of a scary figure reaching for their wallet. Not so. Assessors don't set tax rates. Assessors don't chase tax dollars. An assessor is interested in fairly determining property values, and they take great pride in it. Property tax is determined by a simple formula. Assessors only affect one of these variables, the value, and they do so with incredible accuracy. Assessors aren't tax collectors or even tax setters. They're just fellow taxpayers, and their primary goal is to make everything fair and equitable. Imagine that you're in a restaurant with two friends. One orders a hot dog, one orders a plate of caviar, and you order a steak. The waiter comes to the table with a total bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the guy who ordered the caviar might be happy. But what about the guy who ordered the hot dog? Enter assessors. The food is your property. Just like these meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it's the assessor's job to determine how much each property is worth. That's it. So in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an assessor places value on properties to ensure fairness and equity. After the assessor determines the value of each property, local governing bodies will set their budgets for the coming year. They set the tax rate in order to produce the dollars needed for their budgets. The value of a property does not affect the amount of property tax needed. The sum total of all those budgets is a set number that has to be divided up among all the property owners. So even if everyone's value was cut in half by the assessors, the tax rate will be raised in order to generate the same amount of tax revenue. The assessors don't determine the taxes you pay. They just determine the values of properties to keep everything as fair and equitable as possible. When you notice a change in your property's assessed value, that change is the result of a never-ending quest for fairness and accuracy. Assessors are graded on their performance, so there is a detailed system to get accurate valuations. First, the assessor looks at similar properties that have sold, their sale prices, and the terms and conditions of each sale. That's the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location helps assessors determine how comparable another property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Assessors maintain a thorough database of real estate information to make this process as precise as possible. Changes in value are typically the result of local real estate market sales or major changes to a property. Remodel a kitchen or finish your basement, and your property's value could increase. When you see your home's assessed value, you can rest assured that the number has not been drawn out of a hat, nor generated with anything but equity and accuracy in mind. Long story short, assessors are here to help, not trying to hinder. Their focus is accurate values, not tax collection. The only things an assessor chases are fairness and equity, and they take great pride in it.
So that is just a real quick, basic 3-minute video that kind of shows you what it is that the assessor's office does. Everybody should have a little PowerPoint. I'm not going to read this word for word. I'm just going to give you some supplemental information to go along with the PowerPoint. So I just want to take a few minutes and hopefully answer some of the questions some of you may get as you're going through in your budget process, and after you get the tax, everybody gets the tax bills and they start asking questions. So first of all, the assessment or the value is what my office is responsible for. Assessments and rollbacks have been determined when the budgets for the taxing entities are being set up and adopted. So just like the video said, we do strive to make our assessments fair and equitable. The market value is what the majority of tax assessments are based on. Declaration of Value Statements, or DOVs, tell us what a property is sold for, and if there are any circumstances that would exclude a sale for being used in our sales studies or for equalization purposes by the Department of Revenue. So a family sale, for example, would not be used in our sales studies because it is not a good sale. It is not an arm's length transaction. We do have several codes for good or bad sales. We use those good sales for studying trends and producing models. And these sales are also used by the Department of Revenue to see if our median is in compliance with state law. We review properties anytime we know there is a change, and we also review properties every few years in an area to keep our data current. There's a difference between a fee appraisal and a mass appraisal, which is what we use. Fee appraisals use 3 or 4 sales to set a value for one property. We use a few sales to set a value for many properties. We use trends in sales modeling, and then we apply those stats to the properties. And when a property may sell in Belmont, what it may sell for, an identical or nearly identical property may not sell the same in Clarion, Eagle Grove, wherever it is. So we do break those down by area for the modeling also. So even though the value may not change, we are constantly reviewing everything for the compliance. We have to be within 95 and 105% of market value. So our sales ratio, if a house sells for $100,000, then our value needs to be between $95,000 and $105,000. Otherwise, we are outside of compliance. We are always using historical information to predict what future sales are going to be. So if the department determines that we are out of compliance, they will issue us an equalization order. We don't like this because it's better if we do it ourselves. If they do an equalization order, they adjust an entire class of property where we adjust areas that need it. So if you have a sales median in Clarion that's 85, or in Belmont that's 85, and Dow's is at 97, the Department of Revenue comes in, they will raise Dow's. Then they become out of compliance because they would be above the 105% if they put a blanket equalization order on us. Every notice needs to be sent out when it changes by April 1st of every year, and that is for a January 1st assessment date. So when you get those notices, the first thing you should do is open them up and not throw them away. Contact us if you do not feel the value is correct. That is the first thing that everybody should do. You got to remember, when your tax statements comes out, those values were set nearly 2 years prior to when you got the actual tax statement. You want to be prepared, because stating your taxes are too high is not a valid argument. It could be that the value is just fine, it's the tax rate that is making those taxes go up. That's kind of why I'm here today. So when you come in, you want to make sure you're looking at properties that are similar in size, style, and age. And like the video said, they may not be your next door neighbors. Almost all of the information that we have in our office is public information. It is on the internet, so you can readily get all the information that you need to see if you're being assessed the same as what other properties are being assessed for. Anything that you have that's repairs or anything, if you have written estimates, by all means bring those in and let us know that there's deferred maintenance that needs to be taken care of, because that does affect your value. Insurance companies also do use cost manuals, just like we use the Iowa manual, which is our cost manual. So if we can agree on a value after you get that notice, you have until April 25th to actually come in and sit down with me and basically present your case. If we cannot agree, then you go to the board of review. The board review is, the protest period is April 2nd to April 30th of every year, and it's basically the same thing. You're going to plead your case. The board is appointed by the conference board, and the conference board members consist of the board of supervisors, the mayors from each town, and a member of each school board from every school district that has a high school in it. So I'm not sure which one of you is the representative, but somebody is on my board, and they will help determine my budget. So when you go to the board of review, each side presents information to the board of review. The property owner and I present my information to the board of review. They make a determination, then they send out a notice. Again, if you do not agree with that notice, you have further appeal rights. All the notices that are sent out have the appeal rights at the bottom of your notice. In order to file with PAB or district court, though, you do have to go through the board of review. PAB is a state board, and then of course district court is district court. All of the information that I'm talking about, you can find more information on my website, which I've given everybody a business card. It's got the website on it, and then a little pamphlet of just some other assessor's duties that we have. The other two parts of your tax statement are the rollback, which are determined by the Department of Revenue also. The rollback, we send our abstracts in. Statewide, the growth cannot be, or decline cannot be more than 3%. This helps stabilize what you can budget against. So we're not having waves of ups and downs. And then you have the levy rate. So basically when a taxpayer comes in and talks to me, the first thing we do is we take a look and see what their taxes have done. Is it the value, or is it their levy rate? We break it down even more, and we look at it by school district, by city, by county, by community college, by my budget, by everybody's budgets. And at the bottom of that tax statement, there's also percentages and the budget amounts for each taxing entity, so that we can easily tell if it was not the value, who they need to talk to. We do encourage people to attend meetings, even though some come, some don't. I know this because mine's a public meeting also. A lot of the times you don't get a lot of public input. But we do encourage people to come to meetings even when it's not the budget time. We do remind them that the budgets are set once the public hearings and we've had the public hearings and it's been adopted. So now your values are set, the rollback has been determined, the budgets are approved, the auditor puts it all together, and then you get your tax bill in the mail. So this is just a simple calculation of what a tax bill would be, or tax statement, for a house that's a $100,000 assessment. At the bottom, you can't really see it, but at the bottom, about the bottom third is where all that information is that we try and determine why the tax bill has went up. Or down, they have went down too. This is a pie chart, and it is from a recent tax statement from here in Belmont. It happens to be mine. So you can see that the Belmont Corp, the percentage they get, what the schools get, what the general budget of the county gets, what I get. So it's all broke down into the nice little pie chart. So basically, we are always reviewing sales. We are always looking for that value. This is just a real short timeline to show that things move slowly but quickly. So once you have your tax statement, the value that we set was 2 years ago. We've already set the next year's value, and we're working on the value for the following year. So right now, our 2016 value that you just got your tax statement for is what we set 2 years ago. I've already set 2017. I'm in the process of setting 2018. So by the time you come to me and say my value is incorrect, it's going to be 2 more years before anything changes. So if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Did you say every county does this the same?
Every county follows the same code, yes. They may not do it exactly the same, but it is very, very close to this.
My mom works for the assessor in Franklin County. When they go out and visit properties?
Oh yeah, we do too.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And they,
Yeah, we
so
do
that's
site
somewhere
visits,
in
we do
that.
questionnaires, we do, we look at listings, your neighbors will come in and tell on you.
They put a dent on.
Yeah, we do site visits quite a bit. We look at, when we get new aerial photography, we look at that to see if we see any buildings that might be gone or additions that are put on, all those kinds of things. What's that?
That's why you gotta have good trees.
We do it when the leaves are off. So we don't have the pretty green pictures that Google has. We have the icky brown pictures that, you know, so. So if anybody has any other questions.
I'd just make one comment. Thank you for the information. It was a good presentation tonight. Obviously, for someone's tax bill, a large portion of that is the school district. And, but one of the things I'm going to present to this board at our March meeting when we do our budget hearing is the fact that the Iowa legislature took away most of the budget control from this school board. So when they're actually making tax decisions on the people in this area, they're controlling less than 10% of that tax ability. So,
Yeah. Taxes, the taxes that I have, my portion of it, I know you guys don't have, it's just one piece of your budgets, I know. But when we have people come in and question, I don't know the answers, so I have to send them to you guys.
right. And, but they see that and they say, look at what this school is costing me, and look what that school board did to me. Look what that superintendent did. Hey, I didn't even vote on it. But the answer is, it's the Iowa legislature that did that.
If you have any other questions?
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank
Sure.
you.
I don't know who is your representative, but we are gonna have a couple of meetings coming up.
Didn't we appoint one?
We
We
did.
did at the September
We
meeting.
can't
It wasn't
remember.
me, and it's not Sharon.
It's not
We
me,
don't live in.
'cause
we
it's not
live in
me.
I'm
Canada.
just wondering if it was Teresa.
It might have been
Teresa Muslim?
Okay,
Teresa in, Wright County?
Yeah, she lives here in Belmont.
Yes.
okay. So,
Actually, I
Since
think
no
it
one
was, now
here
that you say
knows,
that.
it must be Teresa.
so I just need to get this to her somehow.
Oh, we can take care of it. Give it to Thelma right there. She can
Okay.
get that to her.
We got a couple of meetings coming up and I wanna make sure,
Yeah, I
school
was
boards
gonna
are
say, I
very
haven't
hard
heard
to
about
get their representatives there.
That's-
We only have 3, and it takes 2 to be able to vote for the union. So,
I don't know, I haven't gotten a letter from them yet.
Oh, man.
thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on, the contract with the Iowa Net High Academy.
Iowa Net High Academy is a new institution. This is something Mr. Fisher brought to my attention. This is an online academy that also has some degree of personal attention. Students that are engaged in this will actually receive weekly visits from a live teacher. We do not have any designs on using this for direct instruction in any way, shape, or form right away. However, where this academy, help me out, Mr. Fisher, if I make any errors here. This academy, we only pay on a per student basis. And within the next year, we could be looking at students that have unique circumstances that may need this facility or this service. So therefore, I'd like to think, the only way we can participate in it is if the board is willing to vote for it. Mr.
Yeah,
Fisher, do you have anything to add to that?
Right now, we have a student that's open enrolled from our district up to Garner Hayfield, Ventura. The person has some particular circumstances with placement, and so they feel it's best for this individual to have this program. So they actually investigated it. It's run by Dr. Cynthia Knight, who is at the VE, and she actually takes and sculptures the program to meet the interests and the needs of the individual student, and then she'll be the one that comes up on site to visit with that person during the weekly. So like, for example, if you had somebody that was interested in cosmetology, all the readings in that class would be based on cosmetology or made to have some value to a program of that nature. And so it's an online program, but it also gets individual support from an instructor, which is different from just an all totally 100% online. And she's also a certified special ed position as well, which meets the needs that we have. And so to get the program in at GHV, we also have to approve it since we are the district of record. So we're approving it because they're going to use it for this particular student that's open enrolled from our district.
Any chance he'd come back to our district if we approved it?
Actually, there is a possibility if they would deny him access at GHV that he would have to come here and we'd have to accommodate his educational needs.
Regardless, if it was Iowa Net Academy, the money would flow through.
It still goes through. And they basically charge us, Dr. Knight charges the school per each individual class. So each class is $700. And they take that class, and once they complete it, and they want to enroll in another class, it's another $700. And basically that equates to about the money that we receive on a yearly basis from the state if they're to complete their typical yearly programming. So it's a flow through dollars, and it's basically dollar for dollar. It's going to their program instead of coming to us.
So they take one class at a time?
Yes.
So we would ask the board to approve our participation in the Iowa Net High Academy.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Sharon, is there a second?
Yes.
Gary? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the contract with the Iowa Net High Academy, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No? Motion passes. All right, moving on to our discussion items. The first one is the Jacobson Elementary Playground.
Yes, so as we talked at the last meeting, you had received the equipment that the PTO had gotten the grant for, about $18,000 of equipment. We do not have the space on our existing playground area to put those items. You asked me to explore some other options. I called a couple people that I knew that worked in the parks area, and they recommended I get in touch with a company called Fry & Associates. And we are not bound by Fry & Associates, but they were a good starting point because they did the work at the park in Mason City that I mentioned. And when I talked to the parks guy in Mason City, he said they came very highly recommended. They did a good job. They stick by their work, which is now several years. I think he said 7 years old at the park. And so I asked him, he came up, the representative came up 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and met with Corey Heifner and myself. We walked through the playground, took a little bit at the site, kind of talked about, I gave him a copy of all the equipment that the PTO had got the grant for, and we walked through it. So I asked them to provide me some basic idea about what this might look like, what area it would cover. And so the first, so if you got the packet, the first page is an aerial view of the existing facility. The area is framed by 2x6s that are just set in the ground. It's got those black chips on top. It has rocks and small pebbles, crushed rock they call it, underneath that, and then it's just dirt underneath that. And they would stick basically with that same format in terms of the layer. They would just put dirt, put rocks on top, and then whatever surface we decide would go with that. So the next drawing is, again, it's a proposed, that area with the lines to the west is what they would propose the area to look like. That accommodates the new equipment on the north side, and then swing sets and another handicap swing on the south side of that area, leaving all the existing equipment in place. Corey and I walked through the equipment with this rep, and he didn't see any reason. Everything was in pretty good shape except the one handicap swing needs some work, and so we talked about that, but otherwise it's all in pretty good shape. The next page, again, is, if you look at it, holding it this way, so the up would be west, again, and the handicap swing is on the south side, and then those other kind of funky looking, I didn't know what they were at first, but those were the swings. And then the other equipment that the grant money is already provided for would be set out in some fashion. And there's no no science to this, they just found, made enough space to accommodate it all where kids could go around each of the pieces of equipment and use it. And so the Polycoat, they call it PrimoTurf. It's just a brand name, but it's a synthetic surface. It's about 3.5 inches deep, and again, it's got on top of the rock or gravel, and they basically just come in and they spread it out across the whole facility. So the existing part as well as the new part that we talked about, and they spread it like asphalt, but it's much more flexible. It's soft, and it runs right up to the concrete. They just they form it right up to the concrete so that a wheelchair could go right from the concrete onto the surface and go anywhere on that surface. There's no seams, there's no steps, no up and down, it's just a flat surface. And actually he, after he looked at it and sent some measurements and talked to his guys, he said it's actually a perfect surface for a playground. It's almost exactly flat, it's crowned just a little bit in the middle so that there's drainage. But he said it's perfect for that. And on the sides that don't rub up against the concrete, it just kind of flattens off into the grass. So they just make it thinner until it gets to a flat, so it's kind of a soft landing into the grass. He had told me when I was there, when he was there, it was roughly $12 to $14 a square foot for the surfacing, plus whatever site prep they'd have to do. I asked him to give me an estimate for basically for them doing all the work. After talking to Corey, we don't have, as Dr. Fraser mentioned earlier, we don't have any kind of landscaping grading equipment to do any of that work, really. That'll have to either be hired out or the people that do it have to do the work. So they can't do, we don't have anything to do the grading, to any of that work. Other than removal of the existing, we can get rid of the existing chips and get rid of the 2x4s, but or 2x6s. Other than that, he said they don't really have the equipment to do the kind of work you would need to do this. So I asked him to do all the work, and it's all setting out here, and you can see, depending on the two different surfaces. One is more visibly pieces of rubber that kind of look like they're all kind of glued together. It's all together, and the other is a smoother, pebbly surface, more like a track surface. And they can be colored. You can put different colors down. I've got their catalog if anyone would like to look at it. It's got different, mostly it's equipment. So, and I apologize, it wasn't much color here, but it's a nice soft surface. It's very safe, and so that's what they gave us. And I had no idea what it would look like. I think if you want to do something different, we can certainly look at that. I think anytime, if we're going to go with this poly type service, it's going to be ballpark in that price range from what I looked around and asked. When I talked to the park guy in Mason City, he said there's a couple other companies, in the Midwest that do this, but it's all roughly the same price. They do roughly the same kind of work, the technology is about the same, so there isn't a whole lot of either go with the old school basic stuff like we have, or you do this polymer.
So these swings
surface.
and stuff, this is in addition to what PTO has already gotten?
The swing set would be an addition, because and you had asked me to ask the staff. I'm sorry, I guess I skipped that part. You asked me to contact the staff and ask them if they thought there was any needs for the kids. The only really response I got was, and there were several responses on that, but we don't have a swing set out there, which seems a little odd to me, but we don't. So, so that was just my suggestion from the staff, that they said they'd like to see a swing set, and we do have the one handicap swing, and the kids are always climbing on it and piling on it, wanting to swing 2 or 3 at a time. So they thought this was good, and that was relatively cheap.
Yeah.
So I knew it was a lot of money, and I didn't know how you'd feel about that, but I just not to compare to the high school stuff, but we have 400 kids using that surface an hour a day, 180 days a year, so it gets a lot of wear and tear, and it's in need of some work. We're going to have to do something with that surface, either load in a bunch more chips or do something different, because they're virtually down. We're down to less than an inch of the chips down there now. There's spots where it's completely bare now, so there's not a lot of fill though. So it's becoming.
Tracking it in the building, right?
What's that?
They track
Oh
it.
Yeah, tracking everywhere. Yeah, tracking everywhere. And and some of we have to remove those 2x6s probably anyway, because the last time they plowed snow, they took a big piece of it out, so we had to get about a 3-foot piece that just came up with the snowplow, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you wanted us to use that.
That went from like a $20,000 project to
So you want us to?
That's what I was gonna say. We played on concrete when I was a kid. Major
Our
time.
insurance agent might have a conversation with us about
It's
putting
so much
concrete in
cheaper
there.
than this stuff.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
So,
What is the difference between the two? I mean, the Primo turf,
yeah,
on
it's,
one side is $12.20 a square, and then it's $14.40.
as I said, and I can get you pictures if you'd like. I didn't really have anything available that I could like photograph and send you, but from what he described that, and there's some pictures in the catalog, the cheaper surface is, it's got bigger pieces of, it's like they take this chip that we have now and kind of break it up and melt it down, so you can kind of see it in the surface. The other one is a very smooth, almost like just smooth
It's like our
surface.
track,
Like
but
the
really
track
soft.
is, but really soft.
So it's a poured surface.
Both of them are poured
Both of them
surface.
are poured.
Yeah.
One of
Both
them
are poured surface.
Recycled tires
Yeah.
that are reconditioned and crumb rubber that they've molded together to create this cushy surface.
So it's still a very smooth surface, but it just doesn't, it's got a different look to it. It's a little rougher look. It's still a very smooth surface. And then the more expensive one is like a track. It's
And
just,
how
you can
long
rub your
do-
hand across it and it's just
How long do
smooth.
these last?
I think the warranty was 10 years. I have to go back and double check.
15, I'm not sure.
And they've been, that service, what's been out there now is 15 years. Obviously, that's when the building was built. So,
The expensive one is very soft.
yeah.
It's very nice.
They're both very, like I said, they both, and they also recommended that our insurance people might give us a little bit of a break if we put the service in, because it does lessen the kids getting hurt and damages and stuff, so. And our kids use it, like I said, we have 400 kids out there an hour a day for recess and lunch.
Well, it's evident we have to do something.
Right.
What it is we're gonna do, I don't know. I would suggest that before we say let's do that we at least explore some other alternatives for assistance with funding.
Like the Lewick Trust.
I didn't say that.
You didn't, but I'm just asking.
So just two things to add, just to give you some context too. We would have to bid this obviously because it's over 25,000, so we'd have to do a little more formal process. He also said it's about a week for the install, and summer would be no problem. So, but you wouldn't want to
The
wait.
kids have to stay off of it for so long after they get it poured?
It sounded like just a day or two.
Well, I know, but,
Well,
like if they do it in the summertime.
We just locked the gates and they wouldn't let
Oh,
anybody in.
okay.
Yeah. That's no problem. I talked to Corey about it. We talked about it a little bit.
Who is the person in contact with me?
I don't know.
You too, Gary. All right, well, I was gonna, I didn't know if you.
What I would suggest is that if the school is serious or interested, that they make a proposal to the Chester P. Lewick Memorial Trust, either to myself or Brad Robson. George happens to be in Arizona enjoying himself right now, but we meet monthly. We meet right after our regular bank board meetings, and we discuss proposals people bring to us.
We certainly can do that.
So I would suggest that maybe some sort of a partnership would be a really good way to approach that.
Excellent, thank you.
And maybe approach the Richard Jacobson Foundation too, because they might have a vested interest in helping at their Richard Jacobson Elementary School.
Okay.
There is a contact person, Doug Thompson. Local Doug would know how to contact the person who runs the Jacobson Foundation.
Okay.
How the dick is going.
If you wait till August, he just camps right next to me at the
There you
state.
go, Shane, we all know you.
Just saying.
Yes, Sam.
It's nice to
It's
have
not
this
what you know,
connection.
it's who you know.
It is.
Okay.
And the Lewick Trust members did talk